Annapolis is a city of ghosts, as is every city. When we acknowledge our history, we see those ghosts and we learn from them. Because the past is not the past around here. It lingers in customs and memories and in our wounds. Mark Twain once said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." You may recognize these prominent men that are coming up on the next slide: Paca, Chase, Carroll, and Stone, all foundational figures in the formation of our country. All were signers of the Declaration of Independence, all lived in Annapolis, and all owned enslaved Africans. Maryland colonists imported enslaved Africans to satisfy the labor demand, many of whom arrived right here in Annapolis. Yet, we must know that free black owns land in Annapolis in the 1700s and early 1800s, because prior to the Civil War, Maryland had more free black citizens than any other state. Now, you may have seen images of this in Annapolis, St. Mary's School, founded in 1862. But did you know that at St. Mary's in 1866, they actually opened a colored school for free American children? Just up the road from St. Mary's, you'll see the Stanton Colored School, which is depicted in this picture here. An agency called the Freedmen's Bureau helped to create this school of newly freed black slaves to help them with work and to become more economically viable. City Dock in Eastport once looked different and felt very different than it does today. The 1960 census shows that only 15 white-occupied housing units in a near City Dock. The rest were all African American. Black Annapolitans lived, worked, and owned homes in downtown, Eastport, West Street, Citygate, and more. So here we are now. In the late 1960s, urban renewal took hold in Annapolis. This historic jewel of the city is also known as the living textbook on the social costs of renewal and redevelopment. It is also the primary reason for the locations and populations living in public housing today. Now, that brief exploration that I gave into the past just serves as a backdrop and lands us squarely in the present. It is neither an indictment, nor is it an accusation. It is merely an acknowledgement, because we are not just the past and present, rich and poor, black and white. We are all of these things and everything in between at the exact same time. Now, Annapolis is known as a tourist hotspot. Across Annapolis, there's beautiful homes that are making way for even more beautiful homes. There are homes on the waterfront, and yet there's still a small town feel to Annapolis. What other cities try to create through urban planning, Annapolis possesses deep down in her bones, even as racial disparities, housing issues, and their consequences persist. Because also in our beautiful city, our crumbling public and subsidized public housing infrastructure continues to exist, and things are being done about that. But it is important that economic imbalance and unaffordable housing be very high on our priority list, because it impacts all of us. Annapolis also possesses a very strong sense of place and deep roots that is often hard to find in other places. And more we are embracing the celebration of all different cultures, from Annapolis Family Day, Kunta Kinte Festival, Annapolis Greek Festival, St. Patrick's Day Parade. To me, these are all building blocks to a more one Annapolis. Until the early 1970s, Carr's Beach, as you see depicted here, was a beach where African Americans went because other beaches were segregated. A lot of you all may already know this, but Fats Domino, Stevie Wonder, Frank Zappa, little Stevie Wonder, as I said, Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, all performed at this beach. And just recently, this beach was acquired to be a public park. Anything that we can imagine for our city, for our children, for our schools, and for our bay is attainable. Now, this image that you see here is a depiction of equity, equality, liberation, and inclusion. It's describing what it looks like. And even if these words don't have an immediate tangible effect, it puts new ideas and challenges into the wider consciousness, so that later on down the line, in a different context, these cues and observations will resurface for the people of Annapolis. Now, how do we become a more unified Annapolis? I propose truth, trust, and reconciliation. I also propose equity and access, as well as intentional investment in all people and all communities. And finally, I propose that we work together. An example of all of that is this right here, an opportunity to exchange ideas and move towards more convergent thinking. And finally, I believe in reframing narratives. One Annapolis is, amongst other things, a narrative. It is a way of expressing an aspirational reality, and it challenges a more dominant reality, the reality of inequalities in our city. Everyone finds themselves in conversations like this, and I realize it may be a little triggering or off-putting, but someone in this room, combined together, when we think about all of us collectively, has all experienced different things, and they've experienced challenging conversations that can feel impolite or sometimes even disruptive. But sometimes, in order to ignite, you must disrupt. Thank you.